The story will be told from the perspective of the main female character.
My name is Chloe, and I am 28 years old. I always thought a family meant you got unconditional love. That idea totally crashed for me at 3:10 in the morning. I was under the harsh fluorescent lights of the St. Luke's Medical Center emergency room. I was lying on a gurney after a terrible car accident. Breathing hurt incredibly bad. The doctor explained that I had internal bleeding. I needed surgery right away. There was one big issue, though. Years ago, I had a bad reaction to regular anesthesia. Hospital rules meant they needed a different procedure. For that, hospital policy demanded family consent. My hands shook so much I barely managed to dial the phone. I called my parents. I got voicemail. I called again immediately, still voicemail. I kept leaving messages that got more and more frantic. About an hour went by slowly. Finally, my phone screen lit up. A text message came from my father. It said, "Can't this wait? We're busy meeting with clients." Busy? I was looking at a text telling me to postpone emergency surgery because they were busy. Have you ever felt completely unseen by your own family? Tell me your story in the comments below. Also, hit subscribe so you don't miss any part of this journey. I just broke down right there. A rough, painful sob came out of my chest. It made my broken ribs scream. The physical agony felt like nothing next to how completely alone I suddenly realized I was. A kind male nurse named Ethan and a social worker named Lisa came to my side immediately. Lisa asked softly, "Chloe, do you have anyone else? Any other relative we can reach?" Tears were streaming down my face. I gave them the only other number I had. It was my grandpa, my mother's father, Arthur. Lisa left the room to make the call. She came back a few minutes later. "He's coming," she told me. "He said he will be here in less than an hour." He lived 60 miles away outside the city. In less than an hour, Grandpa Arthur rushed through the doors. He was 76. He used to be a carpenter and still had sawdust on his old flannel shirt. He came straight to my bedside. His worn hands grabbed my good hand. "Oh, honey," he whispered. That single word contained more love than I had experienced my entire life. He listened carefully as the doctor explained everything. He asked intelligent, practical questions about the risks. Then he took the clipboard. He signed the consent forms with a very steady hand as they wheeled me toward the operating room. He leaned down and kissed my forehead. "I'll be right here when you wake up. Don't worry, kid." Hours later, I woke up fuzzy and confused. The first thing I saw was his familiar shape in the chair next to my bed. He had stayed the whole time. His silver hair was messy. He was halfway done with a crossword puzzle, but he was present. Seeing him, my protector, brought up a flood of memories. An entire life of emotional neglect felt condensed into one painful, clear moment. My parents, Gary and Susan, were successful financial advisors in Lake Forest. Their condo was sleek and modern, looking exactly like something in a magazine. They valued things based only on the price tag. I remember their expressions when I told them I took a job as a nonprofit coordinator. "That's nice, Chloe," my mother had said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. "But it doesn't really pay much, does it?" My father was even worse. I was proud to show them my first car, a used Toyota Corolla with 90,000 miles on it. He simply sighed. "When are you going to get serious, Chloe? You should have gone into finance." But my grandpa was totally different. My parents skipped my college graduation to attend a conference in the Bahamas. My grandpa was there instead. He sat in the rain and held a bouquet of daisies. He taught me how to work with my hands, how to throw clay on a pottery wheel and paint ceramics. "Anything made with love is worth more than anything bought with money," he would always say. He was the person who showed up for me, always the only one. Now, in the scariest moment of my whole life, he was the only one there again. 4 days after my surgery, my parents finally showed up. They walked into my hospital room not sounding worried, but sounding deeply put out. My father was already checking his cell phone. My mother gave me a tiny bag of candy from a drugstore, the kind you pick up at a gas station counter. "Well, you look better," my mother stated, glancing around the room and avoiding my eyes. "The parking situation here is terrible. Chloe, my father complained while packing near the window. We had to drive around for 20 minutes looking for a space. They stayed for exactly 35 minutes. During that time, my mother complained about a difficult client. My father asked, "So, what is the timeline? When do they think you can return to work?" Not, "Are you in pain?" Not, "What did the doctor say?" But, "When can you be productive again?" They left to make it to a dinner appointment. As the door shut behind them, the silence they left was louder and more painful than their pointless talk. A few days later, the medical team came to talk about my discharge. "Your apartment is on the second floor, right?" the doctor asked. I nodded. "Given your leg and shoulder injuries, you can't handle stairs for at least 6 weeks. A wave of panic hit me hard. I had nowhere to go. My parents' sleek, modern condo was famously unsuitable for visitors. Before I could start spiraling, a firm, familiar voice spoke up from the chair in the corner. "She's coming home with me," my grandpa said. He had been there every single day. He told the doctor he was retired. His house was a single level. He had already built a temporary ramp for the front steps. Just like that, it was settled. Moving into my grandpa's small, well-kept house felt like taking a clean breath for the very first time. He set me up in the guest room. He brought me meals he had cooked himself. He sat with me for hours while I got through the painful physical therapy sessions. But during the quiet hours, deep in the night, I lay awake. I kept fighting with a question that made me feel ashamed. Why, after all my parents had done, was I still checking my phone? Why was I hopping for a single text message from them? Why did that 35-minute visit, as insulting as it felt, still seem like something I had genuinely wanted? I had studied this in a psychology class once. The idea is called learned helplessness. This happens when you are stuck in a negative, painful situation for so long that your brain gives up trying to find an escape. You just learn to accept the pain as normal. For 28 years, I had been taught to accept their lack of emotional support. A child who only receives validation once in a great while learns to crave it desperately. They start seeing those small, worthless scraps of attention as if they were a huge feast. My parents had trained me to be thankful for any bit of attention they gave me, no matter how brief or cold it was. I was not weak. I was trained. Lying in that peaceful house, wrapped in my grandpa's steady love, I finally realized that training session was over. As my body began to heal, the paperwork nightmare started. My neighbor, Jessica, a kind teacher who lived in the unit below me, had been collecting my mail. She brought over a huge box overflowing with letters. "I didn't want to bother you while you were, you know," she said, her eyes full of sympathy. But it just kept piling up. I thanked her and sat down at my grandpa's kitchen table with the enormous stack of envelopes. At first, it was just the expected medical bills that made my stomach churn, plus the insurance statements. But then, I found things that made absolutely no sense. There were confusing letters about my disability insurance policy, the one I had through my work, and papers about my private investment portfolio. I called the disability insurance company first. After waiting on hold for 20 minutes, a polite representative finally answered. I explained who I was and that I needed to figure out my claim. There was a long silence. "Ma'am," the representative finally said, speaking very slowly, "we have already been talking to your financial proxies about this account." Cold water dumped into my veins. "My what? Who?" "Your parents," she confirmed. "Gary and Susan. They contacted us, 3 days after your accident. They were asking about the steps for liquidating the entire fund." Liquidating, not just accessing it, liquidating it. My mind raced back 2 years. I was sitting in my father's glass-walled office. He had insisted on helping me set up my first real investment portfolio and the supplemental disability insurance. "It's just standard procedure, Chloe," he had said, sliding a pen across the desk. "We'll just add me and your mother as financial proxies. It makes things easier to manage. It's all part of the family portfolio." I had felt grateful back then. I thought he was finally taking an interest in my future. Now I realized he was just setting a trap. My hands were shaking, but this time it wasn't from pain or weakness. It was a cold, clinical fury. I hung up the phone with the insurance representative and immediately called my father. He answered on the second ring, his voice cheerful. "Chloe, we were just wondering when you'd finally call. Why did you try to liquidate my disability fund?" The silence on the line felt heavy. "Now, Chloe," he finally said. His tone suddenly shifted to the condescending one he used with his most difficult clients. "Listen, the market is low. It's a bad time. We were just planning to restructure your assets, to move that money before it lost value." "Move it where, Dad?" I pressed. My voice was dangerously quiet. "It's just a simple restructure." "Move it where, Dad?" He snapped. The polished facade broke completely, and the raw frustration underneath spilled out. "The firm is having some cash flow issues, if you must know. It's a temporary loan. You will get it back. Don't be so dramatic." A temporary loan. He was planning to use the money I needed to live on while I was unable to work. He wanted to use it to plug a hole in his failing business. This was beyond neglect. This was theft. I ended the call. But the cold reality was just starting to sink in. It wasn't only the disability fund. I went back to the mail pile Jessica had brought over. I went through the bills and insurance spam. Then I found something else. It was an official envelope from a bank I didn't use. I tore it open. It was a rejection for a home equity line of credit. The address on the application was my condo. My father co-signed for my condo 2 years ago. I needed help because I lacked credit history. He insisted then, saying, "It's just a formality, Chloe, just to get you started." He had used that formality to try and steal the equity from my home. The application date was 2 days after my accident. While I was in the ICU, he wasn't just trying to cash out my fund. He was trying to mortgage my home to save his failing business. All the sadness I felt in the hospital disappeared. The learned helplessness was gone. It was replaced by something clear and cold. This was not a family issue. This was not neglect. This was preying on me. They were acting like vultures around my money, waiting for me to be too weak to fight. I did not cry this time. I looked up at my grandpa. He watched me from the doorway, his face full of worry. I did not need to speak. I just handed him the letter. He read it and his face became angry. He stared at it for a minute without talking. Then he put the letter down. He walked into his study and came back holding an old, cracked address book. He flipped the pages, tracing names. Then he picked up the landline phone. "Wallace," he said into the phone. "It's Arthur. Yes, long time. I'm fine, but I'm calling about my granddaughter. She is in trouble." He listened, then held the phone out to me. "Mr. Wallace will talk to you." I took the phone. Mr. Wallace, a lawyer my grandpa knew for 40 years, listened patiently. I explained everything. My voice was steady and cold. I told him about the hospital, the text, the 35-minute visit. Then I told him about the fund and the loan application. There was a long silence. "Chloe," he finally said, his voice calm, "what your parents did is potentially fraud. It's not just wrong. They used their position of trust. They tried to act without your consent when you were unable to. We can stop this now." "What do we do?" I asked. "You rest and heal," he answered. I heard him writing. "I will draft a full revocation of power of attorney, a cease and desist notice for both of them, and new documents nomming your grandfather for both medical and financial choices. I will have it ready tomorrow." When I hung up, the betrayal still hurt, but I finally felt a little powerful. This was a legal fight now. I was finally ready. 4 weeks after the crash, I asked my parents to come to my grandpa's house. I was off medication and steady on my crutches. They arrived at 2 p.m., obviously annoyed. My father walked in first. He did not look at me. "Chloe, this is very inconvenient. We have a 3 o'clock appointment. Hurry up." He stopped when he saw the living room. I was sitting in a chair. My grandpa sat on one side. Mr. Wallace sat on the other, holding a briefcase. My mother saw the lawyer and looked shocked. "What is this? Who is he?" "Please sit down," I said. My voice was calm. They sat across from me. I slid a manila envelope toward them on the coffee table. My father sneered. "What is this? More bills?" These, I said, meeting his eyes, are legal documents. They are a full revocation of every power of attorney you hold over me, medical or financial. They are cease and desist notices. They also remove you as beneficiaries from all my accounts and insurance. It starts right now. My mother put her hand over her mouth. Chloe, how could you, after everything we did? My father's face turned red. Ungrateful, he yelled, standing up. This is how you repay us. We were trying to protect your money. The word protect sounded terrible. I looked at him with finality. Protect it, or liquidate it, like when you applied for a loan on my condo while I was in surgery. The room went quiet. My mother stared at me. Mr. Wallace and my grandpa did not move. My father turned pale. His anger vanished. He was shocked at being caught. He sat down hard. He had thought he was smarter. He thought I was too weak to fight back. You don't know the stress we are under, my mother whispered, trembling. The firm. I know, I cut in. But your failing business is not my problem. Not anymore. Sign the papers. We watch people go through this and feel guilty. We are taught family ties matter most. Toxic people use that idea to trap you. They rely on guilt. They rely on your feelings. They expect you to hurt yourself to keep them happy. Sometimes cutting blood ties is necessary. It is the ultimate self-preservation. It is not about finding hate. It is about finally choosing yourself. It is when you stop being a victim and become your own rescuer. My father snatched a pen, shaking with anger, and signed. My mother signed after him. Her tears stained the paper. They left without another word. My father did not look back. The living room silence was complete. I let out a breath I'd held for 28 years. The following weeks were for rebuilding my life. I secured my finances with Mr. Wallace's help. We opened new bank accounts and set up fraud alerts. I sold the condo. I could not live there knowing my father saw it as property to steal. I found a smaller ground-floor apartment. It had a small patio. My grandpa came over and built a strong wooden ramp for the door. Just until you're stable, he said. I knew it was built to last. I returned to my nonprofit job. I was different now. The experience changed me. I used what I learned, the legal problems, the insurance fights, the patient vulnerability. I pitched a new idea to my boss. A program offering free financial and legal help for people recovering from major medical events. It protects them from exactly this kind of exploitation. My life is calm now. It is full. Last night I had dinner at my new place. My chosen family was there. Grandpa Arthur taught Ethan, the nurse, how to cheat at cards. Jessica, my neighbor, brought a pie. We ate and laughed. I looked at the ceramic bowls I painted, now holding food for people I love. That's when I felt whole. If you feel like you are on the outside of your own family, listen to this. You are not defined by missing love. Your worth is not based on their failure to see you. You are the lead in your story, not a supporting character in theirs. Family is not about blood. It is about who shows up. It is about who listens, who respects you, who protects you, and who sits with you in the dark when you are broken, then helps you build a ramp. Don't be afraid to let go of what hurts you. Choose yourself first. Your real family will be there to support you.